I was 10 years old the first time I realized I wasn't wanted. My parents had 5 children, and I was the middle one, the forgotten one. I grew up in hand-me-downs, in the corners of photographs, in silence. My sisters were pretty, my brothers were smart, and I was just there. Invisible. By the time I was 16, I believed the only way I could matter was if someone chose me. So when a man twice my age asked for my hand, my parents didn't hesitate. They said yes before I could even open my mouth. I became a wife before I learned who I was. At first, I thought maybe this was my chance to finally be seen. He worked, he provided, he said I was lucky. But soon, luck turned into chains. He didn't want a partner. He wanted obedience. My voice didn't matter. My dreams didn't matter. My job was to cook, clean, and bear his children. And I did. I gave him 3 little lives he poured my soul into. I thought maybe, even if he never loved me, they would. I thought they would see the mother who went hungry so they could eat, the mother who sewed clothes out of scraps, the mother who walked miles just to get medicine when they were sick. But children grow, and love fades when it's taken for granted. My eldest left as soon as he could, never looking back. My daughter only calls when she needs something, never when she wants to hear my voice. My youngest, he promised me he'd always take care of me, but now he has his own family, his own life, and I am nothing more than an afterthought. Some days, the phone doesn't ring at all.
Some days, I sit by the window from morning till night, waiting for footsteps that never come.
But here's the truth no one knows. I have always kept a piece of myself hidden. While my husband demanded silence, while my children forgot me, I was collecting memories. Little things, a flower pressed between book pages, a lock of my baby's hair, a letter I wrote to myself every year on my birthday.
55 letters now, sitting in a box under my bed.
Letters filled with everything I couldn't say out loud. My anger,
My heartbreak,
my dreams.
my forgiveness.
That box is my proof that I existed, that I was more than just a wife, more than just a mother, more than just grandma. Last year, when I turned 75, I sat alone again.
No cake, no visitors. Just silence.
I opened that box and read through my life. I cried until I couldn't breathe. And then I made a choice. I bundled the letters, wrapped them in ribbon, and sent them to a local paper. A week later, they called me. They said my words made them cry. They said they wanted to publish them. For the first time in my life, my voice reached beyond the walls of my house. Strangers wrote to me, letters of gratitude, of love, of hope. People who had never met me told me my story gave them courage. And suddenly, my children noticed. Mom, why didn't you tell us? Mom, we're so proud. They wanted to visit, to sit at my table, to celebrate me. But here's the thing. I didn't write those letters for them. I wrote them for me. For the little girl who was invisible. For the young wife who was silenced. For the mother who gave and gave until there was nothing left. I wrote them so I could finally hear my own voice.
And now, when I sit by the window, I don't wait anymore.
Because I am not waiting to be chosen.
I have chosen myself.
And to every grandmother, every forgotten woman out there, I want you to know, you are not invisible. You are not done.
Your story still matters.
And it's never too late to tell it. Story number 2. I was 72 years old when I finally realized I had lived most of my life for everyone but myself. You see, from the time I was a girl, I was taught that my value came from what I could give.
My mother said to tell me, a good woman sacrifices quietly.
She doesn't complain. She serves. And so, I spent my entire life giving, until I had nothing left. I married young, not because I was in love, but because that's what was expected. My husband was not a cruel man, but he was never a gentle one either. He worked, he provided, and he believed that should be enough. But I wanted more than money and food on the table.
I wanted tenderness.
I wanted to be looked at, really looked at, and seen for who I was. Instead, I became part of the furniture of his life, useful but unnoticed. When our children came, I thought, this is it. They will love me. They will see me. And for a while, they did. My son used to wrap his little arms around my neck and tell me I was the best mom in the world. My daughter used to braid flowers into my hair in the garden and giggle, saying I was her princess. Those were the golden years. But children don't stay children forever. Slowly, their worlds grew bigger, while mine only shrank. By the time they had families of their own, I had become background noise. The person they called only when they needed a favor: babysitting, cooking, money. I'll never forget my 72nd birthday. I spent the whole day cooking. My favorite dishes, not theirs. I set the table with my old china, lit candles, even put on a dress I hadn't worn in years.
Y told myself they de come.
They had to. Hours passed, but the chairs stayed empty. Finally, my phone rang. My son. For a moment, my heart leapt, but all he said was, "Sorry, Mom, something came up, maybe next week."
Ten silence again. No call from my daughter.
Not even a message from my grandchildren.
Just silence.
That night, I sat at the table with the candles burning down, staring at the food I couldn't eat, and I realized I was truly alone. But here's the thing. Something inside me shifted that night. I could have cried, and I did, but I also felt something I hadn't felt in years: anger.
Not the loud, violent kind.
No,
The quiet kind.
the kind that had been building inside me for decades. And with that anger came clarity. I had lived my whole life waiting to be seen, waiting to be loved, waiting for someone to tell me I mattered. But if I kept waiting, I would die invisible. So I decided to do something for myself.
The next morning, Idak threw the attic and found an old wooden box.
Inside were photographs, recipes, and little scraps of paper where I had scribbled thoughts through the years. It hit me. My life was more than sacrifice. It was a story no one had ever heard. That very week, I started writing. Page after page, I wrote about everything: the girl I once was, the wife who endured, the mother who gave, the grandmother who was forgotten. My hands shook, my eyes blurred with tears, but for the first time in my life, I felt alive. Months passed, and my notebook filled. One day, I carried it to the library and asked the young librarian if she could read a few pages. She did, and when she looked up at me, there were tears in her eyes. She said, "This needs to be shared." And for the first time in decades, someone truly saw me. Weeks later, my memoir was printed by a small local press. I didn't expect much, but letters began arriving, strangers telling me my words gave them strength. Women told me they left unhappy marriages after reading my story. Others said they finally spoke up to their families. My little book became a voice for people who had been silent too long. And then, just like that, my children noticed. Suddenly, I was important again. "Mom, we're so proud of you." "Mom, when's your next book?" They wanted to visit, to take pictures with me, to show me off. But deep down, I knew the truth. I no longer needed their approval. I no longer needed to be chosen. Because for the first time in 72 years, I had chosen myself. So when they come now, I welcome them.
Y smile, y cook, y listen.
But I am not the same invisible woman I once was. I am a woman with a voice, with a story, with proof that even in the final chapters of life, you can rewrite the ending. And to anyone listening, especially the women who feel forgotten, hear me when I say this: silence is not the end. It is the pause before the most powerful sentence of your life. Story number 3. I was 74 years old the day I realized my house was no longer a home. It was Christmas Eve, the kind of night where the air smells like pine and the streets glow with lights. Families were gathered around trees, children laughing, the sound of music spilling from every window. But in my house, there was only silence. I had set the table for